Tonight is the 18th of August, and we come to Sutta number 75, Magandiya Sutta, to Magandiya. This is a very important sutta, quite a well-known sutta. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in the Kuru country at a town of the Kurus named Kammasadhamma on a spread of grass in the fire chamber of a Brahmin belonging to the Bharadvaja clan. Then when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed and taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Kammasadhamma for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Kammasadhamma and had returned from his alms round, after his meal he went to a certain grove for the day's abiding. Having entered the grove, he sat down at the root of a tree for the day's abiding. Then the wanderer Magandiya, while walking and wandering for exercise, went to the fire chamber of the Brahmin belonging to the Bharadvaja clan. There he saw a spread of grass prepared and asked the Brahmin, "For whom has this spread of grass been prepared in Master Bharadvaja's fire chamber? It seems like a recluse's bed." "Master Magandiya, there is the recluse Gotama, the son of the Sakyans, who went forth from a Sakyan clan. Now a good report of Master Gotama has been spread to this effect, that Blessed One is Arahant, Sammasambuddha, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of worlds, incomparable leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened, blessed. This bed has been prepared for that Master Gotama. Indeed, Master Bharadvaja, it is an ill sight we see when we see the bed of that destroyer of beings, Master Gotama. Be careful what you say, Magandiya, be careful what you say. Many learned nobles, learned Brahmins, learned householders and learned recluses have full confidence in Master Gotama and have been disciplined by him in the noble true way, in the Dhamma that is wholesome. Master Bharadvaja, even if we saw that Master Gotama face to face, we would tell him to his face, the recluse Gotama is a destroyer of beings. Why is that? Because that is recorded in our scriptures. If Master Magandiya has no objection, may I tell this to Master Gotama. Let Master Bharadvaja be at ease. Tell him just what I have said. Stop here for a moment. So here, this Magandiya doesn't seem to like the Buddha. Says the Buddha is a destroyer of beings. Buna huno, that's the Pali. Literally it means destroyer of beings. But this translation, destroyer of growth, it follows a commentary. It is an interpretation. It is not exactly the Pali word. Afterwards, you see why he calls him a destroyer of beings. Meanwhile, with the divine ear or heavenly ear, which is purified and surpasses the human, the Blessed One heard this conversation between the Brahmin of the Bharadvaja clan and the wanderer Magandiya. Then, when it was evening, the Blessed One rose from meditation, went to the Brahmin's fire chamber and sat down on the spread of grass made ready. Then the Brahmin of the Bharadvaja clan went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side. The Blessed One asked him, "Bharadvaja, did you have any conversation with the wanderer Magandiya about this spread of grass?" When this was said, the Brahmin, awestruck and with his hair standing on end, replied, "We wanted to tell Master Gotama about that very thing, but Master Gotama has anticipated us." But this discussion between the Blessed One and the Brahmin of the Bharadvaja clan was left unfinished. For then the wanderer Magandiya, while walking and wandering for exercise, came to the Brahmin's fire chamber and went up to the Blessed One. He exchanged greetings with the Blessed One, and when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side. The Blessed One said to him, "Magandiya, the eye delights in forms, takes delight in forms, rejoices in forms. That has been tamed by the Tathagata, guarded, protected and restrained, and he teaches the Dhamma for its restraint. Was it with reference to this that you said the recluse Gotama is a destroyer of beings?" "It was with reference to this, Master Gotama, that I said the recluse Gotama is a destroyer of beings." "Why is that?" "Because that is recorded in our scriptures." Then the Buddha said, "The ear delights in sounds. Similarly, the nose delights in odors, the tongue delights in flavors, The body delights in tangibles. The mind delights in mind objects, takes delight in mind objects, rejoices in mind objects. That has been tamed by the Tathagata, guarded, protected and restrained. And he teaches the Dhamma for its restraint. Was it with reference to this that you said the recluse Gautama is a destroyer of beings? It was with reference to this, Master Gautama, that I said the recluse Gautama is a destroyer of beings. Why is that? Because that is recorded in our scriptures. So here, this Magandiya, he says the Buddha is a destroyer of beings. Why? Because beings take delight in the six senses. And the Buddha teaches the opposite. So that's why he says the Buddha is a destroyer of beings. And also the Buddha leads beings out of samsara. Now, according to the commentary, they say that the Buddha is a destroyer of growth, and because they say that the six senses grows by experiencing all the sense objects. But here the Buddha is restricting the six sense bases from enjoying the six sense objects, so restricting their growth. But I think the more literal and correct translation is destroyer of beings. What do you think, Magandiya? Here someone may have formerly enjoyed himself with forms cognizable by the eye that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. On a later occasion, having understood as they actually are, the origin, the disappearance, the gratification, danger and the escape in the case of forms, he might abandon craving for forms, remove fever for forms, and abide without thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. What would you say to him, Magandiya? Nothing, Master Gautama. What do you think, Magandiya? Here someone may have formerly enjoyed himself with sounds cognizable by the ear, with odors cognizable by the nose, with flavors cognizable by the tongue, with tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. On a later occasion, having understood as they actually are, the origin, the disappearance, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of the sense objects, he might abandon craving for the sense objects, remove fever for the sense objects, and abide without thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. What would you say to him, Magandiya? Nothing, Master Gautama. So here the Buddha is talking about somebody who has understood the danger in the enjoyment of the six sense objects. So he abandons craving for the six sense objects. And the mind becomes at peace. But Magandiya, he does not appreciate the abandoning of the enjoyment of the senses. That's why he has nothing to comment. Magandiya, formerly when I lived the home life, I enjoyed myself, provided and endowed with the five chords of sensual pleasure, with forms cognizable by the eye, with sounds cognizable by the ear, with odors cognizable by the nose, with flavors cognizable by the tongue, with tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. I had 3 mansions, one for the rainy season, one for the winter, and one for the summer. I lived in the rains mansion for the 4 months of the rainy season, enjoying myself with musicians who were all female, and I did not go down to the lower palace. Stop here for a moment. So here when the Buddha was a lay person, his parents were very rich. So they built 3 mansions for him for the 3 seasons. In India they have 3 seasons, not 4 seasons. And so he had a different mansion for each season. So during the rainy season, he just stayed in the rains mansion for 4 months, surrounded by all female musicians, and probably enjoying sensual pleasures. That's why later it is mentioned that in the Vinaya books that when he renounced all these sensual thoughts came to plague him, disturb him. So he's not the only one in the Vinaya books and the suttas, we find Anuruddha and Yasa, his disciples, were also like him. They each had 3 mansions for the 3 seasons. On a later occasion, having understood as they actually are, the origin, the disappearance, gratification, danger, and escape in the case of sensual pleasures, I abandon craving for sensual pleasures. I remove fever for sensual pleasures, and I abide without thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. I see other beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, being devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, burning with fever for sensual pleasures, indulging in sensual pleasures, and I do not envy them, nor do I delight therein. Why is that? Because there is, Magandiya, a delight apart from sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states, which surpasses divine bliss. Since I take delight in that, I do not envy what is inferior, nor do I delight therein. So here, because Magandiya does not agree with the Buddha abandoning enjoyment of the senses. So here the Buddha is trying to tell him that there is another pleasure which surpasses human pleasure, human sensual pleasures, and human sensual pleasures are inferior to this meditative pleasure. It's because Magandiya does not know, that's why the Buddha mentioned. Suppose Magandiya, a householder or a householder's son, was rich with great wealth and property, and being provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, he might enjoy himself with forms cognizable by the eye, with sounds cognizable by the ear, with odors cognizable by the nose, with flavors cognizable by the tongue, with tangibles cognizable by the body that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. Having conducted himself well in body, speech and mind, on the dissolution of the body after death, he might reappear in a happy destination, in the heavenly world, in the retinue of the gods of the 33, and there, surrounded by a group of nymphs in the Nandana grove, he would enjoy himself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of divine sensual pleasure. Suppose he saw a householder or a householder's son enjoying himself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of human sensual pleasure. What do you think, Magandiya? Would that young god, surrounded by the group of nymphs in the Nandana grove, enjoying himself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of divine sensual pleasure, would he envy the householder or the householder's son for the 5 chords of human sensual pleasure, or would he return to human sensual pleasures? No, Master Gotama. Why not? Because heavenly sensual pleasures are more excellent and sublime than human sensual pleasures. So too, Magandiya, formerly when I lived a home life, I enjoyed myself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, with forms cognizable by the eye, with tangibles cognizable by the body that I wish for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. On a later occasion, having understood as they actually are, the gratification, danger, escape in the case of sensual pleasures, I abandon craving for sensual pleasures, I remove fever for sensual pleasures, and I abide without thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. I see other beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, being devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, burning with fever for sensual pleasures, indulging in sensual pleasures, and I do not envy them, nor do I delight therein. Why is that? Because there is, Magandiya, a delight apart from sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states, which surpasses divine bliss. Since I take delight in that, I do not envy what is inferior, nor do I delight therein. Sorry for a moment. So here, the Buddha is trying to explain to Magandiya that the reason why he encouraged people to abandon craving for sensual pleasures, because there is a higher pleasure, and this higher pleasure even surpasses divine bliss. That means heavenly bliss, heavenly pleasures also cannot compare to this pleasure that the Buddha has experienced. Suppose, Magandiya, there was a leper with sores and blisters on his limbs, being devoured by worms, scratching the scabs off the openings of his wounds with his nails, cauterizing his body with a burning charcoal pit. Then his friends and companions, this one I wouldn't say a burning charcoal pit, probably a burning charcoal. Then his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, would bring a physician to treat him. The physician would make medicine for him, and by means of that medicine, the man would be cured of his leprosy and would become well and happy, independent, master of himself, able to go where he likes. Then he might see another leper with sores and blisters on his limbs, being devoured by worms, scratching the scabs off the openings of his wounds with his nails, cauterizing his body with a burning charcoal. What do you think, Magandiya? Would that man envy that leper for his burning charcoal or his use of medicine? No, Master Gotama. Why is that? Because when there is sickness, medicine has to be made. And when there is no sickness, medicine does not have to be made. So too, Magandiya, formerly when I lived the home life, etc., etc., since I take delight in that, I do not envy what is inferior, nor do I delight therein. Now we come to this part now where the Buddha brings up the simile of the leper. This leper, he is sick, so his flesh is devoured by worms, bacteria and all that. And he's very itchy all over, so he has to scratch his body because he's so itchy. Uses his nails to scratch his body. And that is not enough to ease that itch. The itch goes right to the bones. So what he has to do is he has to bring a burning charcoal and burn the flesh wherever it is itchy. He just cannot stand it. He has to use the charcoal to burn it. Then only he can get some satisfaction. But this fellow, luckily, he's healed by the physician. Then when he sees another leper doing the same thing, the Buddha says, would he envy that leper? It's not possible that he will envy the leper. Now he's healthy, he's no more plagued by that itch. Suppose, Magandiya, there was a leper with sores and blisters on his limbs, being devoured by worms, scratching the scabs off the openings of his wounds with his nails, cauterizing his body with a burning charcoal. Then his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, brought a physician to treat him. The physician would make medicine for him, and by means of that medicine, the man would be cured of his leprosy and would become well and happy, independent, master of himself, able to go where he likes. Then two strong men would seize him by both arms and drag him towards a burning charcoal pit. What do you think, Magandiya? Would that man twist his body this way and that? Yes, Master Gotama. Why is that? Because that fire is indeed painful to touch, hot and scorching. What do you think, Magandiya? Is it only now that the fire is painful to touch, hot and scorching, or previously too was that fire painful to touch, hot and scorching? Master Gotama, that fire is now painful to touch, hot and scorching, and previously too, that fire was painful to touch, hot and scorching. For when that man was a leper with sores and blisters on his limbs, being devoured by worms, scratching the scabs off the openings of his wounds with his nails, his faculties were impaired. Thus, though the fire was actually painful to touch, he mistakenly perceived it as pleasant. So too, Magandiya, in the past, sensual pleasures were painful to touch, hot and scorching. In the future, sensual pleasures will be painful to touch, hot and scorching. And now, at present, sensual pleasures are painful to touch, hot and scorching. But these beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, who are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, who burn with fever for sensual pleasures, have faculties that are impaired. Thus, though sensual pleasures are actually painful to touch, they acquire a mistaken perception of them as pleasant. I'll stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that sensual pleasures are actually painful, but when we don't see the Dhamma and we don't understand, we think sensual pleasures are very pleasant, just like the leper, because he is sick, his limbs are devoured by these worms, and he is so itchy that he has to scratch and scratch until the blood comes out, and then the pus turns to pus, and that is not enough. He has to burn himself with the ember, the charcoal, to ease that itch. But when he is cured, if you want to burn him with the charcoal, he would not want, right? So the Buddha says, the fire is the same, but why? When he was sick, he wanted the burning charcoal to burn his flesh, but when he's well, he doesn't want. So it's because of his mistaken, mistakenly his faculties were impaired, and he mistakenly perceived it as pleasant. Suppose Magandiya, there was a leper with sores and blisters on his limbs, being devoured by worms, scratching the scabs off the openings of his wounds with his nails, cauterizing his body with a burning charcoal. The more he scratches the scabs and cauterizes his body, the fouler, more evil-smelling, and more infected the openings of his wounds would become. Yet he would find a certain measure of satisfaction and enjoyment in scratching the openings of his wounds. So too Magandiya, beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, who are devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, who burn with fever for sensual pleasures, still indulge in sensual pleasures. The more such beings indulge in sensual pleasures, the more their craving for sensual pleasures increases, and the more they are burned by their fever for sensual pleasures. Yet they find a certain measure of satisfaction and enjoyment in dependence on the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. This is a very good simile. The Buddha says that this man, because the itch, this leper, itches right into the bones. So here is mentioned, he scratches the scabs of the openings of his wounds. You know, when our wounds start to heal, and there's a layer of flesh, and there's a layer of starts to heal, the scab forms, then it becomes itchy. I think you all know, isn't it? When you have an open wound. So he scratches himself with his nails. But the more he scratches, the worse it becomes, because more pus forms, and from the pus it becomes evil-smelling and more infected. His wounds become more infected. Yet he continues to do it, keep scratching and burning himself, because he gets a certain measure of satisfaction and enjoyment in easing that itch. So in the same way, the Buddha says, beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures, what we in Malay we call gatal, itchy. So we want to indulge in sensual pleasures, but the more we indulge in sensual pleasures, the more the craving for sensual pleasures increases, the fever for sensual pleasures increases. So the Buddha says sensual pleasures can not be satisfied. There are certain things like sensual pleasures, liquor, sleep. The more we indulge in it, the more we want, can never be satisfied. So the Buddha explains this to educate Magandiya, to make him see that sensual desire is a sickness, because he was scolding the Buddha for telling people to abandon enjoyment of the senses. So here the Buddha is trying to educate him that actually indulging in sensual pleasures is a sickness. We have to ease our itch. What do you think, Magandiya? Have you ever seen or heard of a king or a king's minister enjoying himself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, who without abandoning craving for sensual pleasures, without removing fever for sensual pleasures, was able to abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace, or who is able or who will be able to so abide? No, Master Gautama. Good Magandiya, I too have never heard or seen of a king or a king's minister enjoying himself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, who without abandoning craving for sensual pleasures, without removing fever for sensual pleasures, was able to abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace, or who is able or who will be able to so abide. On the contrary, Magandiya, those recluses or Brahmins who abided or abide or will abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace, all do so after having understood as they actually are the origin, disappearance, gratification, danger, and escape in the case of sensual pleasures. And it is after abandoning craving for sensual pleasures and removing fever for sensual pleasures that they abided or abide or will abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that there is no person without abandoning the enjoyment of sensual pleasures can abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace. Free from thirst, because this tanha is a kind of thirst, translated as craving. If we crave for something, our mind cannot be peaceful. It's like we are sick, like a drug addict. We cannot get his drug. He just cannot sit still. His mind is not at peace. But if a person can abide free from thirst, then his mind is at peace, and then he's happy. He doesn't need anything. So a person with craving is a person who suffers. If you crave for something, you cannot satisfy that thirst, then you suffer, just like the drug addict. So the Buddha says, the spiritual path to abide free from thirst, with the mind inwardly at peace, we have to let go of sensual pleasures. This later books like the Mahayana, Vimalakirti Sutra, they say something that is contradictory. They say this layman Vimalakirti, without abandoning sensual pleasures, he can socialize, be an ordinary layman, and yet he can achieve a higher state than the Arahants, like Sariputta. This is just not possible. Then at that point, the Blessed One uttered this exclamation: the greatest of all gains is health. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. The Eightfold Path is the best of paths, for it leads safely to the deathless. When this was said, the wanderer Magandiya said to the Blessed One, "It is wonderful, Master Gotama. It is marvelous how well that has been expressed by Master Gotama. The greatest of all gains is health. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. We too have heard this said by earlier wanderers in the tradition of the teachers, and it agrees, Master Gotama. But Magandiya, when you heard that said by earlier wanderers in the tradition of the teachers, what is that health? What is that Nibbana?" When this was said, the wanderer Magandiya rubbed his limbs with his hands and said, "This is that health, Master Gotama. This is that Nibbana. For I am now healthy and happy, and nothing afflicts me." And the Buddha said, so stop here for a moment. So when the Buddha asked him, what is that health that you say your teachers mention, what is that Nibbana? So here he's talking about his bodily health. And for him, Nibbana means that nothing afflicts him now. He is healthy and happy. He thinks that is Nibbana. And the Buddha said, Magandiya, suppose there was a man born blind who could not see dark and light forms, who could not see blue, yellow, red or pink forms, who could not see what was even and uneven, who could not see the stars or the sun and moon. He might hear a man with good eyesight saying, "Good indeed, sirs, is a white cloth, beautiful, spotless and clean," and he would go in search of a white cloth. Then a man would cheat him with a dirty soiled garment thus, "Good man, here is a white cloth for you, beautiful, spotless and clean," and he would accept it and put it on, and being satisfied with it, he would utter words of satisfaction thus, "Good indeed, sirs, is a white cloth, beautiful, spotless and clean." What do you think, Magandiya? When that man, born blind, accepted that dirty, soiled garment, put it on, and being satisfied with it, uttered words of satisfaction thus, "Good indeed, sirs, is a white cloth, beautiful, spotless and clean," did he do so knowing and seeing, or out of faith in a man with good eyesight? Venerable sir, he would have done so unknowing and unseeing, out of faith in the man with good eyesight. So too, Magandiya, the wanderers of other sects are blind and visionless. They do not know health, they do not see Nibbana, yet they utter this stanza thus, "The greatest of all gains is health, Nibbana is the greatest bliss." This stanza was uttered by the earlier Arahants, Sammasambuddhas thus, The greatest of all gains is health. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. The Eightfold Path is the best of paths, for it leads safely to the deathless. Now it has gradually become current among ordinary people. And although this body, Magandiya, is a disease, a tumor, a dart, a calamity, and an affliction, referring to this body, you say, this is that health, Master Gotama, this is that Nibbana. You do not have that ardent vision, Magandiya, by means of which you might know health and see Nibbana. I'll stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha gives the simile of the blind man being cheated and told that that dirty cloth that he bought is a white, spotless, clean cloth. So the Buddha says, in the same way, you are blind. You have been cheated by your teachers, and all of you do not know what is health, what is Nibbana. Then Magandiya said, I have confidence in Master Gotama thus. Master Gotama is capable of teaching me the Dhamma in such a way that I can come to know health and see Nibbana. And the Buddha said, Magandiya, suppose there was a man born blind who could not see dark and light forms, etc., or the sun and moon. Then his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, would bring a physician to treat him. The physician would make a medicine for him. Yet by means of that medicine, the man's vision would not arise or be purified. What do you think, Magandiya? Would that doctor reap weariness and disappointment? Yes, Master Gotama. So too, Magandiya, if I were to teach you the Dhamma thus, this is that health, this is that Nibbana, you might not know health or see Nibbana, and that would be wearisome and troublesome for me. Stop here for a moment. So here, he's asking the Buddha to teach him. But he put it this way, I have confidence in Master Gotama, that Master Gotama is capable of teaching me the Dhamma. So now he's requesting the Buddha to teach him the Dhamma. So the Buddha said, I might teach you the Dhamma, but you might not see it. That would be troublesome for me. Second time he repeated, I have confidence in Master Gotama thus. Master Gotama is capable of teaching me the Dhamma in such a way that I can come to know health and see Nibbana. Magandiya, suppose there was a man born blind who could not see dark and light forms, etc., or the sun and moon. He might hear a man with good eyesight saying, Good indeed, sirs, is a white cloth, beautiful, spotless and clean. And he would go in search of a white cloth. Then a man would cheat him with a dirty, soiled garment thus, Good man, here is a white cloth for you, beautiful, spotless and clean. And he would accept it and put it on. Then his friends and companions, his kinsmen and relatives, would bring a physician to treat him. The physician would make medicine, emetics and purgatives, ointments and counter-ointments, and nasal treatment. And by means of that medicine, the man's vision would arise and be purified. Together with the arising of his vision, his desire and liking for that dirty, soiled garment would be abandoned. Then he might burn with indignation and enmity towards that man, and might think that he ought to be killed thus. Indeed, I have long been tricked, cheated and defrauded by this man with this dirty, soiled garment when he told me, Good man, here is a white cloth for you, beautiful, spotless and clean. So too, Magandiya, if I were to teach you the Dhamma thus, this is that health, this is that Nibbana, you might know health and see Nibbana. Together with the arising of your vision, your desire and lust for the five aggregates affected by clinging might be abandoned. Then perhaps you might think, Indeed, I have long been tricked, cheated and defrauded by this mind. For when clinging, I have been clinging just to material form. I have been clinging just to feeling. I have been clinging just to perception. I have been clinging just to volition. I have been clinging just to consciousness. With my clinging as condition, being comes to be. With being as condition, birth. With birth as condition, aging and death. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. So here the Buddha says, this blind man might be cheated. But one day when he is cured, then he realizes that he has been cheated for a long time by the man who sold him that dirty cloth. Then he gets so angry and might think he want to kill that man. So in the same way, the Buddha said, I might teach you the Dhamma and you might understand. And then when you have understood, then you will realize that you have been clinging for the five aggregates, and then you realize you have been cheated for a long time by this mind. The Buddha says our mind has been cheating us, playing tricks on us for a long time. We have not been able to see clearly. So we have been clinging to these five aggregates and take it to be I and mine. And because of our clinging to the five aggregates, we turn on the round of rebirths, experiencing birth, aging, dying, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, lifetime after lifetime. And the third time he pleaded with the Buddha. He said, I have confidence in Master Gotama thus. Master Gotama is capable of teaching me the Dhamma in such a way that I might rise up from this seat cured of my blindness. And now he acknowledges that he is blind. Then Magandiya, associate with true men. When you associate with true men, you will hear the true Dhamma. When you hear the true Dhamma, you will practice in accordance with the true Dhamma. When you practice in accordance with the true Dhamma, you will know and see for yourself thus. These are diseases, tumors and darts. But here these diseases, tumors and darts cease without remainder. With the cessation of my clinging comes cessation of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and dying, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So after this third time that he pleaded with the Buddha to teach him, then only the Buddha gave him this advice. Associate with Aryans. Then when you associate with Aryans, you will hear the Aryan Dhamma. And then if you practice the Aryan Dhamma, then you will know and see for yourself. This is the cause of your suffering. And you let go that clinging, then that being, that I am ceases. When that being ceases, then the round of rebirth ceases. When this was said, the wanderer Magandiya said, Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of monks. I will receive the going forth under Master Gotama. I will receive the full ordination. And the Buddha said, Magandiya, one who formerly belonged to another sect and desires the going forth and the full ordination in this Dhamma Vinaya, lives on probation for 4 months. At the end of 4 months, if the monks are satisfied with him, they give him the going forth and the full ordination to the monk state. But I recognize individual differences in this matter. Humble Sir, if those who formerly belong to another sect and desire the going forth and full ordination in this Dhamma Vinaya, live on probation for 4 months, and if at the end of 4 months the monks being satisfied with them, give them the going forth and the full ordination to the monk state, then I will live on probation for 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, if the monks are satisfied with me, let them give me the going forth and the full ordination to the monk state. Then the wanderer Magandiya received the going forth under the Blessed One, and he received the full ordination. And soon, not long after his full ordination, dwelling alone, withdrawn, diligent, ardent and resolute, the Venerable Magandiya, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now entered upon and abided in that supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the home life into homelessness. He directly knew birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. And the Venerable Magandiya became one of the Arahants. That's the end of the sutta. So, since the Buddha asked him to associate with true men, then he realized the true men, the Aryans, are to be found among the Buddha and the Buddha's disciples. So he decided to go forth, ordained as a monk. And when the Buddha told him he has to go on probation for 4 months, he said he was willing to go on probation for 4 years if necessary. Unlike some people, if you tell them you have to go on probation for 4 months, they will bargain. Too long, how about 2 months, how about 1 month? So he became an. So you see, this sutta is an excellent sutta. The Buddha has made it very clear how sensual pleasures is actually a sickness. For worldly people who don't understand the Dhamma, we think sensual pleasures is great. That's what we want to look for in the world, but that actually is the source of suffering. That is the cause of the round of rebirths. So only when we understand the Dhamma, understand that this sensual desire can never be satisfied. And the more we indulge in it, the more sick we become. Just like the leper or for example, the drug addict, the more drugs he takes, the more sick he becomes. So this is one of the classic suttas. I don't know whether I have time to finish the next sutta. It's quite long. 41 minutes. Okay, let me try. Sandaka Sutta, number 76, to Sandaka. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living in Kosambi at Gosita's park. On that occasion, the wanderer Sandaka was staying in the Pilaka tree cave with a large assembly of wanderers. Then when it was evening, the Venerable Ananda arose from meditation and addressed the monks thus, "Come friends, let us go to the Devakata pool to see the cave." "Yes, friend," those monks replied. Then the Venerable Ananda went to the Devakata pool together with a number of monks. Now on that occasion, the wanderer Sandaka was seated with a large assembly of wanderers who were making an uproar, loudly and noisily talking many kinds of pointless talk. This pointless talk, the Pali word is Tirachana Kata. Tirachana is animal. So it's animal talk. In other words, base talk, low talk. Such as talk of kings, robbers, ministers, armies, dangers, battles, food, drink, clothing, beds, garlands, perfumes, relatives, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, countries, women, heroes, streets, wells, the dead, trifles, the origin of the world, the origin of the sea, and whether things are so or are not so. Then the wanderer Sandaka saw the Venerable Ananda coming in the distance. Seeing him, he quieted his own assembly thus, "Sirs, be quiet, sirs, make no noise. Here comes the recluse Ananda, a disciple of the recluse Gotama, one of the recluse Gotama's disciples staying in Kosambi. These venerable ones like quiet. They are disciplined in quiet. They commend quiet. Perhaps if he finds our assembly a quiet one, he will think to join us." Then the wanderers became silent. Stop here for a moment. So here, this part it shows that the Venerable Ananda is respected by this Sandaka and his wanderers. I guess most of the Buddha's disciples are respected. Venerable Ananda went to the wanderer Sandaka, who said to him, "Let Master Ananda come. Welcome to Master Ananda. It is long since Master Ananda found an opportunity to come here. Let Master Ananda be seated. This seat is ready." The Venerable Ananda sat down on the seat made ready, and the wanderer Sandaka took a low seat and sat down at one side. When he had done so, the Venerable Ananda asked him, "For what discussion are you sitting together here now, Sandaka? And what was your discussion that was left unfinished?" And he said, "Master Ananda, let be the discussion for which we are now sitting together here. Master Ananda can well hear about it later. It would be good if Master Ananda would give a talk on his own teacher's Dhamma." I'll stop here for a moment. So here you see, they are also eager to learn the Buddha's Dhamma, because they have great respect for the Buddha and his Dhamma and his Sangha. Then Sandaka, "Listen and attend closely to what I shall say." "Yes, sir," he replied. Venerable Ananda said, "Sandaka, there are 4 ways that negate the living of the holy life, have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Samma Sambuddha. And also these 4 kinds of holy life without consolation have been declared, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome." But Master Ananda, what are these 4 ways that negate the living of the holy life that have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Samma Sambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome? Here, Sandaka, some teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this: there is nothing given, nothing offered, nothing sacrificed, no fruit or result of good and bad actions, no this world, no other world, no mother, no father, no beings who are reborn spontaneously, no good and virtuous recluses and Brahmins in the world, who have themselves realized by direct knowledge and declare this world and the other world. A person consists of the 4 great elements. When he dies, earth returns and goes back to the body of earth. Water returns and goes back to the body of water. Fire returns and goes back to the body of fire. Air returns and goes back to the body of air. The faculties are transferred to space. 4 men with the bier as fifth carry away the corpse. The funeral orations last as far as the charnel ground. The bones whiten. Burnt offerings end with ashes. Giving is the doctrine of fools. When anyone asserts the doctrine that there is giving and the like, it is empty, false prattle. Fools and the wise are alike cut off and annihilated with the dissolution of the body. After death they do not exist. I think this is the Dhamma of Ajita Kesa Kambali. He's saying there is no karma, there is no pains of rebirth. After you die, there's nothing left. Nothing exists after death. About this, a wise man considers thus. This good teacher holds this doctrine and view. There is nothing given, etc., etc. If this good teacher's words are true, then here in this teaching I have done my duty by not doing it. Here I have lived the holy life by not living it. Both of us are exactly equal here in this teaching. Both have arrived at equality. Yet I do not say that both of us are cut off and annihilated with the dissolution of the body, that after death we shall not exist. But it is superfluous for this good teacher to go about naked, to be shaven, to exert himself in the squatting posture, or to pull out his hair and beard, since I, who live in a house crowded with children, who use banaras, sandalwood, who wear garlands, scents and unguents, and accept gold and money, gold and silver, that is money, shall reap exactly the same destination, the same future course as this good teacher. What do I know and see that I shall lead the holy life under this teacher? So when he finds that this way negates the living of the holy life, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the first way that negates the living of the holy life that has been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. So here, remember Ananda is saying that this first teaching, this Ajita Kesa Kambali says there is no karma. If there is no karma, he says, then what is the use of going about naked? Because these wonders, what's the use to shave? What is the use of exerting yourself in the squatting posture, to pull out your hair and beard, etc.? Because if there is nothing in the end, there's no rebirth, then both the ascetic and the layman will get the same destination. That means after death nothing exists. So this is the first way that negates the living of the holy life. In other words, there's no point to live this holy life. The way this teacher says, in the end you get nothing. So why practice all these ascetic practices? Again, Sandaka, here some teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. When one acts or makes others act, when one mutilates or makes others mutilate, when one tortures or makes others inflict torture, when one inflicts sorrow or makes others inflict sorrow, when one oppresses or makes others inflict oppression, when one intimidates or makes others inflict intimidation, when one kills living beings, takes what is not given, breaks into houses, plunders wealth, commits burglary, ambushes highways, seduces another's wife, utters falsehood, no evil is done by the doer. If with a razor-rimmed wheel one were to make the living beings on this earth into one mass of flesh, into one heap of flesh, because of this there would be no evil and no outcome of evil. If one were to go along the south bank of the Ganges, killing and slaughtering, mutilating and making others mutilate, torturing and making others inflict torture, because of this there would be no evil and no outcome of evil. If one were to go along the north bank of the Ganges, giving gifts and making others give gifts, making offerings and making others make offerings, because of this there would be no merit and no outcome of merit. By giving, by taming oneself, by restraint, by speaking truth, there is no merit and no outcome of merit. About this a wise man considers. This good teacher holds his doctrine and view. When one acts, etc. If this good teacher's words are true, then here in this teaching I have done my duty by not doing it. Here I have lived the holy life by not living it. Both of us are exactly equal here in this teaching. Both have arrived at equality. Yet I do not say that whatever both of us do, no evil is done, but it is superfluous for this good teacher. What do I know and see that I should lead the holy life under this teacher? So he finds that this way negates the living of the holy life. He turns away from it and leaves it. This is the second way that negates the living of the holy life that has been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha. So in the same way, this second teacher says there is no karma, no merit of doing good, etc. So that being the case, what's the point of living the holy life? So this teaching negates the living of the holy life. Again, Sandaka, here some teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. There is no cause or condition for the defilement of beings. Beings are defiled without cause or condition. There is no cause or condition for the purification of beings. Beings are purified without cause or condition. There is no power, no energy, no manly strength, no manly endurance. All beings, all living beings, all creatures, all souls are without mastery, power and energy, molded by destiny, circumstance and nature. They experience pleasure and pain in the 6 classes. About this a wise man considers thus. This good teacher holds this doctrine and view. There is no cause or condition for the defilement of beings, etc. If this good teacher's words are true, then here in this teaching I have done my duty by not doing it. Here I have lived the holy life by not living it. Both of us are exactly equal here in this teaching. Both have arrived at equality. Yet I do not say that both of us will be purified without cause or condition. But it is superfluous for this good teacher, etc. What do I know and see that I should lead the holy life under this teacher? So when he finds that this way negates the living of the holy life, he turns away from it. This is the third way that negates the living of the holy life that has been declared by the Blessed One. So here, this teacher, this third one, says there is no cause or condition for the defilement of beings, and no cause or condition for the purification of beings. If that is so, then what's the point of living the holy life? Since everything happens by itself, then there's no point to live the holy life. Again, Sandaka. Here some teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. There are these 7 bodies that are unmade, not brought forth, uncreated, without a creator, barren, standing like mountain peaks, standing like pillars. They do not move or change or obstruct each other. None is able to arouse pleasure or pleasure and pain in another. What are the 7? They are the earth body, water body, fire body, air body, pleasure, pain, and the soul as the 7. These 7 bodies are unmade, etc. Herein there is no killer, no slaughterer, no hearer, no speaker, no cognizer, no intimator. Even those who cut off someone's head with a sharp sword do not deprive anyone of life. The sword merely passes through the space between the 7 bodies. There are these 1,400,000 principal kinds of generation, and 600 kinds, and 600 kinds. There are 500 kinds of action, and 5 kinds of action, and 3 kinds of action, and action and half action. There are 62 ways, 62 sub-aeons, 6 classes, 8 planes of man, 4,900 kinds of livelihood, 49 kinds of wanderers, 4,900 abodes of serpents, 2,000 faculties, 30,000 hells, 36 elements of dust, 7 percipient breeds, 7 non-percipient breeds, 7 sheetless breeds, 7 kinds of gods, 7 kinds of men, 7 kinds of demons, 7 lakes, 7 knots, 7 kinds of chasms, 700 kinds of chasms, 7 kinds of dreams, 700 kinds of dreams, and there are 84,100,000 great aeons wherein by running and wandering through the round of rebirths, fools and the wise both will make an end of suffering. There is none of this. By this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall make unripened action ripen, or annihilate ripened action as it comes. Pleasure and pain are meted out. The round of rebirths is limited. There is no shortening or extending it, no increasing or decreasing it. This as a ball of string when thrown goes as far as the string unwinds. So too, by running and wandering through the round of rebirths, fools and the wise both will make an end of suffering. About this, a wise man considers thus. This good teacher, stop here for a moment. This is the doctrine of Pakuda Kachayana. About this, a wise man considers thus. This good teacher holds this doctrine and view. There are these 7 bodies that are unmade, not brought forth, etc. If this good teacher's words are true, then here in this teaching I have done my duty by not doing it. Here I have lived the holy life by not living it. Both of us are exactly equal here in this teaching. Both have arrived at equality.
Yet I do not say that both of us will make an end of suffering by running and wandering through the round of rebirths. But it is superfluous for this good teacher to go about naked, to be shaven, to exert himself in the squatting position, and to pull out his hair and beard, since I, who live in a house crowded with children, who use Benares, sandalwood, who wear garlands, scents and unguents, and accept gold and silver, shall reap exactly the same destination, the same future course as this good teacher. What do I know and see that I should lead the holy life under this teacher? So when he finds that this way negates the living of the holy life, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the fourth way that negates the living of the holy life, that has been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha. These, Sandaka, are the four ways that negate the living of the holy life, that have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. Stop here for a moment. So this one, just like some teachings, they say so many things to make it seem very complicated. Actually, all this is rubbish. So it's also almost the same thing. There is no by this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall make unripened action ripen or annihilate ripened action as it comes. There is none of this. Pleasure and pain are meted out. So if that is the case, there is no karma in the same way, karma vipaka, then there is no point in living the holy life, pulling out the hair and practicing all these ascetic practices, because in the end, the ascetic and the layman will reap exactly the same reward, the same destination. It is wonderful, Master Gautama. It is marvelous how the four ways that negate the living of the holy life have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha. But Master Gautama, what are those four kinds of holy life without consolation that have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. Stop here for a moment. So earlier, remember, Ananda mentioned the four ways that negate the living of the holy life, and he explained it. Then he also mentioned the four kinds of holy life without consolation. So now this Sandaka is asking him to explain this, the four kinds of holy life without consolation. Here Sandaka, some teacher claims to be omniscient and all-seeing, to have complete knowledge and vision thus. Whether I am walking or standing or sleeping or awake, knowledge and vision are continuously and uninterruptedly present to me. He enters an empty house. He gets no alms food. A dog bites him. He meets with a wild elephant, a wild horse, a wild bull. He asks the name and clan of a woman or a man. He asks the name of a village or a town, the way to go there. When he is questioned, how is this? He replies, I had to enter an empty house. That is why I entered it. I had to get no alms food. That is why I did not get any. I had to be bitten by a dog. That is why I was bitten. I had to meet with a wild elephant, a wild horse, a wild bull. That is why I met with them. I had to ask the name and clan of a woman or a man. That is why I asked. I had to ask the name of a village or a town and the way to go there. That is why I asked. I stop here for a moment. So this man, this teacher, claims to be omniscient and all-seeing, to know everything all the time, uninterruptedly. But if he knows everything, when he goes for alms food, he does not get any alms. Why didn't he know? And then a dog bites him. If he knows everything before, then he will avoid the dog, but he gets bitten by the dog. And then he meets a wild elephant. And then when he doesn't know direction, he has to ask how to go somewhere, or ask the name of a village or town. Then they ask him, you say you know everything. Why is it you don't know the name of the village or the town? You don't know the direction here and there. He said, I had to ask. About this, a wise man considers thus. This good teacher claims to be omniscient and all-seeing, to have complete knowledge and vision. When he is questioned, how is this? He replies, I had to. That is why. So when he finds that this holy life is without consolation, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the first kind of holy life without consolation that has been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. So this one, this man, when he considers this teacher, claims to be omniscient, but actually so many things he doesn't know. So he finds there's no consolation in this teacher, this holy life. Again, Sandaka, here some teacher is a traditionalist, one who regards oral tradition as truth. He teaches the Dhamma by oral tradition, by legends handed down, by what has come down in scriptures. But when a teacher is a traditionalist, one who regards oral tradition as truth, some is well remembered and some is wrongly remembered, some is true and some is otherwise. About this a wise man considers thus, this good teacher is a traditionalist, etc. So when he finds that this holy life itself is without consolation, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the second kind of holy life without consolation that has been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha. So this second teacher, he teaches everything according to the books. But then when he teaches according to the books, there are some things he remembers, some things he forgot. And some is true, some is not true. So when his disciple or disciple to be considers this teacher, some of the things he says is true, some is not true, then he doesn't find consolation in this holy life, turns away from it. Again, Sandaka, here a certain teacher is a reasoner, an inquirer. He teaches a Dhamma hammered out by reasoning, following a line of inquiry as it occurs to him. But when a teacher is a reasoner, an inquirer, some is well reasoned and some is wrongly reasoned, some is true and some is otherwise. About this a wise man considers thus, this good teacher is a reasoner, etc. So when he finds that this holy life is without consolation, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the third kind of holy life without consolation, has been declared by the Blessed One. Stop it for a moment. So here, this third time, he uses logic, but sometimes his logic is well reasoned out, sometimes it's wrongly reasoned out. Some is true, some is otherwise. So this man finds this holy life without consolation, so he turns away. Again, Sandaka, here a certain teacher is dull and confused. Because he is dull and confused, when he is asked such and such a question, he engages in verbal wriggling, in eel wriggling. I don't say it is like this, and I don't say it is like that, and I don't say it is otherwise, and I don't say it is not so, and I don't say it is not so. About this a wise man considers thus, this good teacher is dull and confused, etc. So when he finds that this holy life is without consolation, he turns away from it and leaves it. This is the fourth kind of holy life without consolation. This is the teachings of Sanjaya Balati Putta. It's an eel wriggler. So someone considers his teaching, is not satisfied with it, and will leave it. These Sandaka are the four kinds of holy life without consolation that have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha, wherein a wise man certainly would not live the holy life, or if he should live it, would not attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. Stop here for a moment. Actually, all these instances are mentioned by Ananda. There are such teachers in India at that time, they are supposed to be famous teachers. But so I remember Ananda, without mentioning names, he points out that all these teachers are not perfect. And Sandaka said, it is wonderful, Master Ananda, it is marvelous how the four kinds of holy life without consolation have been declared by the Blessed One who knows and sees, Arahant Sammasambuddha. But Master Ananda, what does that teacher assert? What does he declare? Wherein a wise man certainly would live the holy life, and while living it would attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. So now he's asking, what is the real teaching, the real holy life? Then remember Ananda quotes is Sutta 51, that's on page 448, 12 to 19. So remember Ananda says, here a Tathagata appears in the world, Arahant Sammasambuddha. And then he teaches the Dhamma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. And then a householder hears the Dhamma, and after hearing the Dhamma and understanding, he renounces the home life and becomes a monk. Then having gone forth, he practices the holy life. The first one is Sila, and then after that contentment, then after that guarding the sense faculties, and then full awareness, and mindfulness and full awareness, and then seclusion, and then after seclusion, he abandons the 5 hindrances, purifies his mind of the 5 hindrances. Having thus abandoned these 5 hindrances, imperfections of mind that weaken wisdom, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana. This is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with delight and pleasure born of seclusion. A wise man certainly will live the holy life with a teacher under whom a disciple attains such a lofty distinction, and while living it, he would attain the true way, the Dhamma that is wholesome. Again, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, he enters and abides in the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. A wise man certainly will live the holy life with a teacher under whom a disciple attains such a lofty distinction. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, any teacher who can teach the disciple to attain the jhanas, then remember Ananda says, a wise person would certainly want to live the holy life under this teacher. So that is how the Buddha's disciples value the jhanas, look up to the jhanas. And then after this, he mentions the threefold knowledges. If the teacher can teach the disciple to attain the recollection of past lives, and see how beings pass on according to their actions, in other words, attain the divine eye or heavenly eye. And the third one, destruction of the asavas, and become liberated. Then a wise man would certainly want to live the holy life under such a teacher who can teach the disciple to attain the 3 knowledges, the 4 jhanas and the 3 knowledges. Then Sandaka asks, but Master Ananda, when a monk is an arahant with taints destroyed, one who has lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached the true goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and is completely liberated to final knowledge, could he enjoy sensual pleasures? Sandaka, when a monk is an arahant with taints destroyed and is completely liberated, he is incapable of transgression in 5 cases. A monk whose taints are destroyed is incapable of deliberately depriving a living being of life. He is incapable of taking what is not given, that is, of stealing. He is incapable of indulging in sexual intercourse. He is incapable of knowingly speaking falsehood. He is incapable of enjoying sensual pleasures by storing them up as he did formerly in lay life. When a monk is an arahant with taints destroyed, he is incapable of transgression in these 5 cases. Stop here for a moment. So here, an arahant is incapable of doing these 5 things. One, purposely killing. Secondly, stealing. Third, indulging in sexual intercourse. Fourth, lying. Fifth, storing up food to use for the next day. Because an arahant, he has no self. He does not worry about living. So this contradicts some of the later teachings. But Master Ananda, when a monk is an arahant with taints destroyed, is his knowledge and vision that his taints are destroyed continuously and uninterruptedly present to him, whether he is walking or standing or sleeping or awake. As to that, Sandaka, I shall give you a simile, for some wise men here understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Suppose a man's hands and feet were cut off. Would he know, my hands and feet are cut off continuously and uninterruptedly, whether he is walking or standing or sleeping or awake? Or would he know, my hands and feet are cut off only when he reviews this fact? The man, Master Ananda, would not know my hands and feet are cut off continuously and uninterruptedly. Rather, he would know my hands and feet are cut off only when he reviews this fact. So too, Sandaka, when a monk is an arahant with taints destroyed, his knowledge and vision that his taints are destroyed is not continuously and uninterruptedly present to him, whether he is walking or standing or sleeping or awake. Rather, he knows my taints are destroyed only when he reviews this fact. How many emancipated ones are there in this Dhamma Vinaya, Master Ananda? There are not only 100 Sandaka or 200, 300, 400 or 500, but far more emancipated ones than this in this Dhamma Vinaya. It is wonderful, Master Ananda. It is marvelous. There is no lauding of one's own Dhamma and no disparaging of the Dhamma of others. There is the teaching of the Dhamma in its full range, and so many emancipated ones appear. But these Ajivakas, these mothers' dead sons, laud themselves and disparage others, and they recognize only 3 emancipated ones, namely Nanda Vacha, Kisa Sankicha, and Makali Gosala. Then the wondrous Sandaka addressed his own assembly. Go, sirs, the holy life is to be lived under recluse Gotama. It is not easy for us now to give up gain, honor, and renown. That is how the wondrous Sandaka exhorted his own assembly to live the holy life under the Blessed One. That's the end of the sutta. So here in the end, he's so, he's so impressed by the Buddha's Dhamma and the number of arahants that he asked his disciples all to follow the Buddha, the Samana Gautama. I'm not sure whether they did, maybe they did. But he himself, he said, he's already famous, he's not willing to let go of his fame as a teacher and become a disciple. So this sutta, the last part, this where the arahant is incapable of 5 things is very important. Arahant is incapable of purposely killing, stealing, indulging in sex, telling lies, and storing up things to use another day. Okay, we end here.